All right. So today we're going to be talking about Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. And there are a couple reasons why I decided to introduce this now, developing or conceptualizing how our psyche develops. We look at cognitive development, we look at physical development, and now we're kind of looking at a psychosocial sphere as we get into more peer relations, as we left off with preschool and school-age children. This is kind of where moral development really takes shape, because a lot of what we learn happens within the home, within that microsphere, right? If you look at some of those theories, we get all of our values from our parents. Now, as we hold on to those values and we solidify those values, they start translating to more social aspects of our lives, and they start applying them and testing them, right? According to Piaget, we're experimenting with our environments. So Lawrence Kohlberg kind of took it a step further and looked at moral development, which is very important, not only in personal development, but how we interact with our peers, how we are successful in negotiating different situations and making decisions in that. So in this lesson, we're going to discuss Kohlberg's stages of moral development, and you're going to be able to assess where you fall into Kohlberg's stages, how advanced your moral thinking is according to Kohlberg. Okay, so just I'm going to share my screen with you here so you can kind of see what I'm seeing as well, and hopefully okay. So moral development is really an important part of the socialization process, as I had mentioned. The term refers to the way people learn what society considers to be good and bad. So underneath here, we're going to say good versus bad. Now, why did I put that in quotes, do you think? Why would I say, what is ironic about the words good and bad? Not ironic, but I guess ethereal.
People might have a different definition of what's good and what's bad.
Right, exactly. Yep. Because good and bad means something different for everybody. And we learn that through, again, our immediate family, our family morals as we're raised up. And then that may even shift throughout time. So at one point we might have said that that taking things that aren't ours, that aren't ours is a bad thing, right? We learn that from a very young age. But as we grow up and get a little bit older, we tend to move that scale a little bit as to what's acceptable to take what isn't ours and what's not, right? So that really shifts throughout time, which is important for a smoothly functioning society, if you think about it. Moral development really prevents people from acting on unchecked urges, right? So instead, considering what is right for society and really good for others. So Lawrence Kohlberg, who was in practice or alive from about 1927 to 1987, was really interested in how people learn to decide what is right and what is wrong. So to understand this topic, he developed the theory of moral development, and that includes 3 levels, which is the pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional stages, which I'll get to here in a minute. Before I get into really what those stages are, I want to present you with what we know as the Heinz dilemma. And I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to put it up on the screen as well, but I'm going to read it to you. And it's a little bit wordy, and I apologize about that. But I really encourage you to think about your answer to this question at the end of the paragraph. So all right, let me bring this up on the screen so you can read along with me. And kind of just think about what your response would be, okay? So in Europe, a woman was near death from a special kind of cancer. There was one drug that the doctors thought might save her, and it was in the form of radium that a druggist in the same town had recently discovered. The drug was expensive to make, but the druggist was charging 10 times what the drug cost him to make. He paid $200 for the radium and charged $2,000 for a small dose of the drug. The sick woman's husband, Heinz, went to everyone he knew to borrow money, but he can only get together about $1,000, which is half of what it costs. He told the druggist that his wife was dying and asked him to sell it cheaper or let him pay later. But the druggist said, "No, I discovered the drug. I'm going to make the money from it." So Heinz got desperate, broke into the man's store to steal the drug for his wife. Should the husband have done that? Okay. So here's really the key question is, should he have done that? I encourage you to think about your response to this answer and hold on to that. And importantly, think about your reasoning behind it. So it says, what I'm going to ask you to do is maybe just type in, maybe I can set up a poll in here and see how many of you would answer yes or no to this. Let me see if I can do this. Polling, okay. Oh, right. Should have set this up beforehand. All right, so I'll tell you what, just type your answers in the chat. Yes or no, should he have done that? Should Heinz have stolen the medication? Or maybe even a thumbs up or thumbs down or something. See what everybody's response is. Okay, got quite a few yeses, a couple nos. Okay. All right, a lot of more yeses than we have nos. All right, interesting, right? Because we learn that stealing, again, that's one of our things that we learn at a young age, is stealing is bad, right? So what are some of the reasons that you have for why you think he should have stolen the drug or not? Or at least if it was right for him to steal the drug for his wife, or why do you think it was wrong for him? Which one? Anybody care to jump in and talk?
I said yes, because it was for the woman to live, and I think that like resources to like help keep living should be, you know, accessible and not withheld from anyone, if that makes sense.
Okay. So what I'm hearing from you is that the greater good here is that his wife lives, as opposed to the druggist making his money.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, I also agree with Jackie, because the man did give him $1,000 too, and he only paid $200 for it, so he did make a little bit of profit. And like I think Elizabeth said in the chat, human life is irreplaceable. So if he's just worried about making money off of it, then that's not necessarily the best thing. He should want to help everybody too.
Okay. And okay, yeah, I see what you're saying there. So you think that the druggist probably wasn't acting in the best interest of humankind, or yeah. Okay. How about no? Anybody that answered no, do you care to explain what your answer is?
Yes. Yeah, me, I see no.
Okay.
Because I think the bad thing to stealing, it's, I mean, like how our parents and how we teach our kids, the stealing, it's not good. I agree. This situation, it's very hard. I mean, he has to do something to save his wife's life. But in my opinion, beside to go to steal, he can ask somebody. He can borrow him some money, or I mean, there are many ways. In my opinion, there are many ways to get those money beside to steal.
Okay.
Because what I have and like what my parents teach me, or how I teach my kids now, never to take somebody things. At least if you ask for permission, you know.
Okay.
So in my opinion, he doesn't have to steal those money, because there are many ways. We should not give up. There are many ways to get those money from.
Yeah. Okay.
And pay for his wife. That's my opinion.
No, that's really good. And it sounds like you're kind of bringing in that family values, not only from what you learned, but what
Exactly.
lessons you're going to teach your future generations. Okay, that's
Yes.
important too, you know. And
Yeah.
everybody has different values, right? And some of you do say, yes, it's okay to steal because human life is at stake here. And you know, Samira, it's her opinion. Maybe there's another way. You know, maybe there's another way to do
Exactly.
this as opposed to stealing, which might be
Yeah.
more importantly considered wrong in your case, right? All right, good answers. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on those. So these are called Kohlberg's moral stages of development, and it's based on Lawrence Kohlberg, who we talked about, who's no longer with us, but he did a lot of really important work. And one of his examples he used was this Heinz dilemma, and he used other dilemmas like it. That he really didn't care whether the people said yes or no, but rather he cared about the reasoning behind their answers, similar to what many of you had described, right? So whether you say yes, he should have stolen it, or no, he shouldn't have, actually doesn't matter. What categorizes you in different areas within this sort of categorization system are the three stages with those with levels within those stages, and I'm going to get into all that here in just a minute. But it really depends on the reasoning behind it. So each stage, as I alluded, has two different levels, which I'll bring up here, has two different levels within that stage. So the two different levels would be, as you can see, off to the left-hand side will be the stages, and then there'll be the levels that fall behind them. And it'll make sense here when I start filling these out, okay? So there are 6 different levels altogether through the 3 stages. And think of how you respond to the Heinz dilemma and figure out which of these 6 levels you fall into. I will mention that all ages can really fill out any of these levels. Okay, so we do have a rough idea of what age groups these fall into. However, it really depends on what some of those lessons are that they learned and all that good stuff. Okay, so let me bear with me one second here. All right. So let's kind of walk through these stages here and see how they go. All right. So the first one, I'm going to walk you through each one of these, and then I'm going to describe which one of the levels follow behind it. So let's start with stage 1. So stage 1 is going to be the pre-conventional. All right. Pre-conventional morality, or pre-conventional meaning sort of basic, right? So we're at the lower levels. So at this level, at level 1, the very most basic form of moral reasoning abilities you can have according to Kohlberg's obedience and punishment. So far, people who are at this level of morality, behavior is driven by avoiding punishment, right? And we think about that. So we're going to put level 1. Oops. What did I say? Obedience and punishment. Punishment. There we go. If I can spell. So far, people at this level of morality, behavior is driven by avoiding punishment. So think back to Heinz dilemma. Someone might say no if, again, in this level, they might say, no, Heinz should not have stolen the drug for his wife because he might go to jail as a result. He might, he might be punished in some other way, right? And he doesn't want to do that because that's a bad thing. And if you kind of think about, we're talking about kids that are in preschool and going into grade school, we oftentimes see that. We see parents that tell their kids not to do something, right? Otherwise, there might be punishment involved. Now, I don't think we got into, did we get into, yeah, we did. We got into classical conditioning and operant conditioning in earlier lessons. And if you think about that, if it's followed by punishment, that is really the least effective way to guide somebody's behavior. If what they think is going to follow that is punishment, that's not very diverse in thinking. That's not very divergent thinking, because they're only doing something to not get in trouble. Okay, they're not really developing the sense of morals that we're hoping to see as they're growing up. So I think we talked about how spanking, while it might be appropriate and effective in certain situations, it's not effective in all situations, right? Because what's the child going to do if the parent is out of view of them? They're probably going to do the thing that they're not supposed to do, right? Because they want to do it. They have no internal value of that. So that's why we really have to consider punishment and moving beyond that level 1 and teaching these stages, right? So next we have level 2. I'll put this off to the right of level 1. And level 2 morality is called individual interests. Okay, individual interests, because now we're kind of taking an interest in ourselves, because we want what we want, and we're kind of bending the rules, bending the scheme, if you will, just to serve our self-interest, right? And this is for people who are at this level. They're driven by self-interest and rewards for that. So in this case, what do you do if you think somebody who has the individual interest level might say about Heinz dilemma? Well, he might say, yes, he should steal the drug because he wants to get his wife back, right? He wants to make sure that she's going to be alive through this. It may not be for her needs, it may not be for the druggist's needs, but it's going to be more for that individual's needs. It might hurt the druggist, whatever is the most rewarding to him to steal that drug, because he will save his wife's life, and that's what he wants to do. Okay, so let's look at let's kind of move on to stage 2, right? And again, when we look, I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. When we're looking at individual interests, I was talking about how punishment only is effective when the person thinks that they're being watched, right? If they don't think they're being watched, they're going to be more likely to act on individual interest. And that's where a punishment scale in operant conditioning really lacks really any kind of strength. Okay, so anyway, on to stage 2. So stage 2 morality is the conventional morality, right? Conventional, more conventional, more abundant, right? This is probably more average of what people are thinking. Conventional means that most people fall into stage 2. Most people are right here, as we've already talked about in the pre-conventional stage. Now we're going to talk about the conventional morality. What do you think comes next, right? Post-conventional, right? Just kind of put these out. Conventional. All right. So before we get to that, we'll talk about the 2 levels within the conventional morality. So the first thing that we have is put level 3, personal. As in between people, right? And then this level is for people overall. Is really the first level of the conventional morality. We talked about what we look at for more social approval is what the interpersonal is. So what looks right in front of other people, right? So think about the Heinz dilemma. It could go either way. He could say, yes, he could have stolen it, or no, he shouldn't have stolen it. But again, the reasoning matters. Most of the people that reside in level 3 morality might say he should steal the drug because most people view stealing as bad. People might look down on him for doing it, right? Or he might say that he should steal the drug because even though stealing is bad, letting your wife die is even worse, right? So, how do you balance that when you should have done something about it, and people will look down on you for that as well? So again, it's all about it's all about special circumstances or social approval, that these kind of people who you might see them in restaurants, they wash their hands only when people are in the bathroom with them, correct? Hopefully nobody in this room does that, right? You should wash your hands anytime you go to the bathroom. But some people that are more in this level 3 interpersonal level might consider only washing their hands when somebody's watching them, because they don't want to look down upon for that. So let's move on to level 4. And I'm going to show you a video with all these examples here in just a little bit, just to kind of give you maybe a on-the-spot quiz and see how you do, if you can pick out what level you think they are. Okay, so level 4 is called authority. All right, authority, and what people are driven by is obeying authority and conforming to social norms. Okay, so conformity. So probably a little bit lesser or more relaxed moral reasoning happens here, because in level 3, we're looking at approval. We want to do the thing that's right. That may shift as we're going to get into other areas of social psychology, where conformity, doing what everybody else is doing, even though it might be wrong. And we might see that in like gang mentality, right? Or there are many examples in social psychology that show that people will do the wrong thing because they're following the herd, right? Because we also want approval. And even though it's social approval, the matter of whether it's right or wrong does not really apply when we look at authority, right? So we look at authority, that might be government. The government says, don't steal, it's illegal to steal. That's the norm for it, but it's okay to steal. So Heinz really shouldn't have stolen, but anyway, he's kind of making his own choice there. He's above self-interest. He's above doing what should be right. He's doing it because it's what he thinks he should do for his wife again. But all right, so let's look at post-conventional. And again, I'm going to give you lots of examples of these. So post-conventional morality, again, post-conventional meaning not everybody makes it here. This is really the creme de la creme here, if you will. So let's talk about level 5. Level 5, which is the first level of post-conventional morality. And this one is called social contract. Okay, so social contract is where behavior is driven by a balance of social order and individual rights. So we're going to put in parentheses, order versus rights. Okay. So this is, again, kind of a higher order of morality here. It's so you think about what this means and how somebody in social contract might respond to the Heinz dilemma, right? So social order, they might talk about how rules and regulations and even the laws, and they're for a reason, and everybody, if everybody stole, everybody committed a crime whenever they thought that they had a reason to, or whenever they thought they had a legitimate reason to, everybody would be committing crimes and society would just kind of implode. It would self-destruct. So that's what social contract is. It's the idea that, yes, you recognize the individual rights of the person who wants his wife to live, but also the person invented the drug, right? They have the right to that drug and use it however they want, and sell it however they want, right? And I kind of heard that reflected in Samira, thinking about, it is wrong to do that, but everybody has rights here. The druggist has rights. So what right does it take, or what right does Heinz have to take away the rights of somebody else, even though if it meant his wife dying? So those are kind of the things that we look at, and you kind of hear that reflected. I hear that a lot with within the medical field. Why are drugs so expensive? Why are doctors charging so much? You know, I have a great example. I had a ear, nose, and throat specialist I saw not too long ago, and I was in there for 5 minutes, and I got a bill for a pretty hefty bill for just 5 minutes of service. But that was his right to charge, no matter whether I was. So anyway, those are kind of the things that we face in the stage 5 is everybody has rights, and we don't have the right to take other people's rights away, regardless of the depth of it, right? So finally, I'm going to get to level 6. So level 6, few people make it here so far. So if you're thinking on this level, you know, congratulations, you're probably one of a few. Universal ethics are really what we look at. Universal ethics. Now, this is a little bit harder to achieve, and you know, we're driven really by internal moral principles. So very internal morals. What do I mean by that, right? What does it mean? Okay, so I have a moral principle that's wrong to steal. I have another moral principle that people have a right to live and be healthy, right? So universal ethics involves weighing these two conflicting moral principles in this dilemma. So your reasoning would essentially reflect the idea of, okay, well, yeah, it's wrong to steal. However, his wife's right to live is far more important than the druggist. So it's more important than his right to make that money. Or the druggist, his right to his property, right? That's his property. He developed it. He's selling it, and he's kind of setting the standards there. So the importance of life is essentially at a higher level of importance of the property, and therefore, yes, he should have stolen the drug. Now, again, you know, I wouldn't focus too much on what this means, and I know a lot of you had different reasons for this. We can really apply these standards throughout our different facets of our lives, right? So for example, many of you know that it's wrong to break the law, right? I would probably challenge everybody in this room that you probably break the law and you don't think about it. What are ways that we probably break the law? And I'm not a cop, by the way, so I'm not going to hold anybody to this.
Eating.
Speeding, exactly. Number 1, right? Jaywalking, right? All these little infractions, right? We kind of just view those as ways to guide the masses, ways to keep people in general, keep the majority of the people in order. But we kind of pick and choose what we want to do as far as breaking these little rules, because again, we might be acting on individual interests, right? So these are just, and think about that. What situations do you have different levels of these? Okay. So what I'd like to do is play a short video for you and kind of see if you can pick which level of morality we're sitting at. Hold on 1 second here. All right.
What is your name?
Alex,
And how old are you, Alex?
12.
12. And what grade are you in? Stop throwing things at him. What grade are you in?
7th grade. I mean.
7th grade. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. I just want you to respond to me the best you can. A man's wife is dying of a very severe illness and needs a medicine that costs a lot of money. He doesn't have enough to pay for it, so he decides to break into a store and steal it in order to save his wife's life. Did the husband do the right thing?
No, because he should have tried to find an organization that would help him raise money or raise his money himself to buy the medicine.
That's a good idea. What do you think he should do now, since he already like went in and broke the law?
Um, find a way for his wife to get cured and that's it.
Okay.
All right. So what did you think? What level would you say he was in? Anybody? Bueller? Can you hear me? Can I get a sound check here? My Zoom keeps cutting out. I said, what level do you think that kid was in?
1.
You think it was 1? Okay. Why 1?
Because I'm just guessing. I'm not exactly sure. And nobody else is answering.
Okay. All right. How about no, hold on a second.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, hold on a second. Sorry, slight interruption there. So level 1, just because it seems right. Okay. How about any other answers there? Can you still hear me?
Yes, Professor, we can hear. I can hear you.
Okay. So what levels do you think we're at that with that kid?
Can I see the list again?
Yeah. Let me. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to keep switching these back and forth. Messages here that keeps freezing up. I'm sorry. All right. So what I'm probably going to do, the video might be a little bit too much for this. Can you all hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the video might be a little bit too much to be playing over. I don't know what's wrong with internet today. What I'll do is I'm going to post this video. And if you want to, you can go ahead and view this and see if you can kind of get a sense of how people would respond to Kohlberg's or what level they might fall under with these and what the appropriate stages are. Okay. Anyway, it was kind of a cool video, but I think it's freezing up our Zoom, so I'm not going to continue it. Any questions on Kohlberg's theory of moral development? Okay. All right. I see some of you are just responding in chat. All right. So if you can, let me know in chat if you want to, I'm going to stop recording here.